Hello and welcome to Dwarf Fortress. This is the story of Melkor, a very troubled mayor of the dwarven fortress known as Frostlearned, the artificial plain. This dwarf was cursed to roam the night in search of blood. But let's start at the beginning. Melkor, the bronze hero of hearts, a dwarf vampire, was born in the year 177 and was the only daughter of Reg Philomater and Obok Squeezedvault. Born and raised in the fortress of Hateproud, Melkor became their weaponsmith in the year 189, officially joining the dwarven group known as the Hall of Escorts. But in the year 190, Melkor withdrew from society in Hateproud and created the artifact known as Blush Humid and claimed it as a family heirloom. Blush Humid was a legendary axe. The silver battle axe, all craft worship, of course, was of the highest quality. It is decorated with dog bone, and it is circled with bands of raccoon bone. Melkor would carry this axe with them for most of their life, from place to place as they traveled the lands. In the following years, Melkor participated in many sieges and assaults on various elven and human towns alike. Hateproud was a dark fortress, bent on war and enslaving goblins. But behind all the bloodshed, Melkor met their first lover, Cole, Granite Shoes. Rim Dragons, the Glaze of Glory, shortly thereafter prosecuted the future doctrines. In Hateproud, Melkor was expelled with dozens of others, and some sacred sites were desecrated. Melkor and many friends moved to the dwarven fortress known as Present Hives, where Melkor took on the profession of pressing. Due to stress of being separated by their loved one, Melkor began gambling and lost a fortune in Present Hives at the unthinkable desert and went seriously deep into debt. Tavern gambling is not for the faint of heart. Many dwarves lose many a fortune. To cope with these losses, Melkor began embezzling funds in the Alderson and the Hall of Escorts, and the local population became suspicious. But most of the evidence was eventually lost, and Melkor got away, scot-free. Several years later, Melkor performed at the Wayworld Chapel in Present Hives, and was cursed to prowl the night in search of blood. 20-odd years later, Melkor aroused a general suspicion in Minuit after a murder. Melkor had moved a few fortresses over to try and hide their curse and their lack of aging. But it was no use. In the late autumn of 354, Melkor fled to the dark fortress of Spinrough and became a pilgrim seeking out information about their god, and fought in the violent sieges against the dark elves of the west. To avoid suspicion of the massive amounts of skill in combat, Melkor moved once again, this time settling in the fortress of Frostlearned, the artificial plain, became a member of the Relic of Scoring and a member of the Frost Mountains of Learning. Fooled the Relic of Scoring into believing she was Melkor Rightstand, a much younger dwarf, to avoid suspicion from the lack of aging. The dwarves were enamored with her brilliant speech and analytical abilities, and she was quickly elected mayor of the fortress of Frostlearned, the artificial plain. But it didn't take long for the murders to begin happening. Very quickly after Melkor moved in, two dwarves appeared dead, completely drained of blood. This horrific scene scarred many of the dwarves. Who could have done such a hideous crime? Little did they know that among their ranks was an immortal, unsleeping, blood-sucking vampire. As a mayor, Melkor was wonderful, only requesting the dwarves build many slabs to, of course, remember the dead. This fortress was very peaceful. Not many deaths happened here. Suspicions began to rise as Melkor would wander off from their office and their post from conducting meetings to sip on dwarven child's blood. The fortress was in a growing situation of panic and grieving. A horrendous combination for most parents, a loss that no dwarf should have to face. No creature should outlive their child, and in such a distressing way. Melkor had had a rough life, seen many deaths, many she killed herself. She thought that by coming to this fortress and getting a position of power, she could help them build their grand library and work towards something better. But she sees now that that was never an option for her. As a vampire, you're cursed. How are you ever going to regain respect in dwarven society after murdering many children? Melkor thought it was time to make a change. Deep within the fortress, there is a creature, a giant worm with thin wings. It shoots webs, a forgotten beast of old. It has been down there for some time, trapping a number of dwarves deep within the caverns. Melkor thought, it's time to remove this problem. I shall throw myself in an act of suicide and defense to give the dwarves enough time to get back to the surface. That's exactly what Melkor did. The distraction was successful. The dwarves were able to seal up the cavern, and the miners were able to get back to the main fortress. A distressing tale of a dwarf that lived 200 years too long, traveled the world, saw many things, became a prophet, murdered 47 dwarves and humans along the way. Melkor will be remembered as a hero in the Frost Mountains of Learning. Statues will be erected, engravings will be polished. They never did figure out who the vampire was, but that's probably for the best. Till next time, dwarves, when we speak of a tale from a dwarf fortress. Thank you very much for listening.